My Sony camera rig has gone through many iterations since I first purchased it back in 2019. And at first, I thought I needed to buy all these cages and top handles and mounts and all sorts of stuff to really get the most out of this camera. Really, I ended up just wanting it to look cool with all the addition of all this stuff. And so what I've quickly realized now, at least, is that less is more, and especially with this camera for me. And that's because this is the camera that I take with me on all of my outdoor adventures. So if I'm camping, hiking, backpacking, traveling, whatever it is, I usually take this little guy with me. So I really stripped back the cage, I stripped back a lot of the stuff that I added to this camera, and I feel very confident about where it is now, that it is like the perfect run and gun setup. It's lightweight, stabilized, easy to use, and I still have a monitor so I can get the functionality of a cinema camera from it. So in today's video, I want to go through the parts that I use to build this tiny little rig and why I love it so much. So stick around. Now, I know this might seem boring to most. I don't have a V-mount battery or a cool mat box or any of that stuff attached to this thing. For me, honestly, the least amount of parts I can have on this camera rig, it's just gonna make my life way easier in the long run. The last thing I wanna worry about when I'm trying to get a shot is fumbling around with Allen keys trying to get the cage on, or finding the right size Allen key so I can mount the monitor onto this top handle. I just had a lot of issues with the actual small rig cage that I used before that kind of hindered me from actually getting the shot that I needed. So here's a breakdown of all the parts, and I have found that these 6 or 7 parts here are the essentials that I need to make this setup work best for me. I have the camera and the lens itself, a 5-inch Atomos Ninja monitor, small rig top handle, a monitor mount, also by small rig, a variable ND filter, and the HDMI cable that I need to connect them. So truly, the only real main addition to this camera is the Atomos monitor, and this serves a couple of functions. First off, it's a lot larger than the tiny LCD screen on the back of the camera, and it's a lot brighter, which is a huge plus. But it also allows me to load custom LUTs onto it, and this is a feature I constantly use all the time, so I can get a better idea of what my final shot is gonna look like. Also, I truly hate monitoring in log. So the second function of this monitor is it actually acts as a recorder itself. Now, the Atomos allows me to record ProRes files, which are much easier and faster to edit with in Premiere and Resolve. The playback is not laggy at all compared to the XAVCS files from the SD cards themselves. So the other bonus is that if anything happened to the footage on the SSD drive in the monitor itself, I do have the footage on the SD cards as a backup if needed. Redundancy is a must for me. I never want to deal with corrupted video files ever again. I've got some horror stories about that. Now the cool thing about this rig is if I do want to take off this monitor and this top handle in case I want to do something like take photos instead of video, then all I need to do is unscrew this little top thread right here, unplug the HDMI, pull out, and then I have this whole entire top unit which I can just set off to the side, and voila. So now I have the camera itself and I can take photos. So now what I want to do is take all these parts and remove everything from each other and then show you truly how long it takes me from beginning to end to build this camera up. And the best part of this for me is that I can carry this camera around on a long hike and I never feel fatigued. My arms don't feel tired from carrying a giant camera rig around. And the other thing is I'm not worried about camera shake. This lens has stabilization and the camera has internal IBIS, or in-body image stabilization. You can actually see an example here above of some footage that I shot totally handheld with this exact same setup. This is truly a night and day difference between the rig that I was setting up before with this camera. I used to use a small rig cage, which required me to take the lens off, and then I would have to use an Allen key to put the top handle on, and honestly, it was just a little too time consuming to break down and rig up every time I wanted to shoot. Now this setup has truly changed my workflow and it's made it easier and faster for me to be able to shoot with this camera, and also gives me the ability to take this thing anywhere I might go. And that's pretty neat. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this camera might not look like much, but this thing sure does pack a punch. How do you feel about this camera setup? Do you prefer like a heavier, fully loaded, rigged out camera, or are you feeling this minimalistic vibe? Please let me know in the comments below. And make sure to stay tuned because next time I will be covering how I rig up my Canon Cinema camera, which will be much more entertaining for you gear nerds out there. If you want to stay updated on my work, new videos, and other fun things like that, make sure to subscribe down below and follow me on Instagram @TimmyLodi. And until then, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.